This past Sunday, the third Zeepkist Super League was held. A quick overview of placements before jumping into the races. I ended up placing third in the event, behind Maki, who ended up winning, and Jandje, who got second. So congrats to Maki, they absolutely killed it the entire event. They were extremely consistent. I believe they podiumed 10 of the 11 maps. So very well deserved, congrats to them. But let's just jump into the races, can talk more about the event, maps, times, everything else as we go through them. So this first map here is Construction by Ultimate Billy. It's a very smooth map. I don't really have any complaints with it. I was very happy to see that it was picked to be the first map in the event. It's one that I wasn't worried about DNFing, not being able to put down a time, and there are some of the maps in this event, particularly toward the end, that I was a little concerned with that. So this was one where we were able to kind of just warm up and get used to the event, get into it. The biggest thing on this map is definitely to conserve speed if you're looking for faster times. If you look at the map as a whole, the only way you can gain speed is by the boosters and downhill at the start. The rest of the map is just maintain speed through that part. So you're really only accelerating the first 10 seconds maybe, and then the next 50 seconds you have to do whatever you can to maintain that speed throughout the entire map. It's much more important to try and save a few extra speed, especially early on, than it would be to take a turn tighter. I ended up not having the best time on this map, so that was a little disappointing start, but I definitely know the line at very least. This next map here is by Maki. So on this map I had a line that myself and Owl both found independently. Owl had told me they found something but weren't on to show me, and then I went in, looked at it, and pretty much immediately found it. So right after this first checkpoint here, you can go in between these cones through the Zeep guys, and most players, especially jandje, Maki, most of the players that were competing were going around those cones off the wall. So that cut actually saves probably about a second. It's significant how much time it saves. I ended up winning this map with a 51.8 and was honestly a little disappointed with that time. Thought it wasn't a very strong time, but if you weren't using that line, if you weren't going through the Zeeps, then a 51 just wouldn't be possible. So regardless of whether or not this time I considered super strong for that line, it was enough to win the map. This next map here, it's kind of an interesting map. It had a few techniques that we had tried out, but nothing really seemed either worth it in competition or actually worth it in general. So it ended up being a pretty standard line, but what you can do right here, you can actually jump over that wall right there and inner wall ride this entire turn. That would both save speed and take the turn tighter. It's significantly faster, but when I was testing it, I was only able to hit it one time and deemed it just not possible in competition, just not viable to go for. The next thing we tested was the entire floor is a finish. So hitting that checkpoint, we tried to just throw ourselves down to the floor and see if it was faster. And it's extremely close, but I actually think it is about 0.3 faster to go to the normal finish. So the next map here by Cord, and we're going really quick. A lot of these maps are pretty short. This one, fairly slow map. I think the most important thing here was just get the correct line. I'm not sure everybody had that. What you want to do after checkpoint 3 here is just jump down and land smooth on this downhill. I think I saw a lot of people wall riding this, a lot of people jumping elsewhere. If you did that was the most important thing, to take the shortest line and have speed. So this was probably the first map in the event where I actually hit the time I was going for with a 30.5, but still ended up placing second on it. This next map here, it's just flat, some turns. Again, you're not gaining speed anywhere except the start, so it's very important to try and conserve as much speed as you can. The only thing with this map that might be a little different is right at the start there, going left and wall riding that first checkpoint and then popping out of it. You're able to get roughly the same speed to the checkpoint, but it's just a more straight line. And then the rest of it is taking these checkpoints in the shortest way you can and maintaining as much speed as you can. Again, with the only way to get speed being at the beginning, conserving speed is the most important thing. So here we have Jandje's map. which I was surprised that they actually didn't end up winning this. I don't think there's a single player who won their own map during the event, which is pretty surprising. It's a good advantage to make your own map, but no one ended up winning their own map. This one, really smooth map. Jandje knows how to make some maps. There's flows nicely. The biggest thing with this one, I think, and it's my only, I guess, negative with this map, is coming up here. When you drop down, it seems a bit random how much speed you have on the landing. So it's right here on the drop down. You can land this with anywhere between 135 and 140 is common for me to land it at. I wasn't able to find out a way to get it consistent. It just seemed I had to basically hope when I was on a good run to land that with good speed. Ended up not getting the 54 I was expecting with a 55 even. But Maki and Jandje had really strong times on this. I don't know if I could have got them regardless. So this map is... it's a bit of an odd one. It seems like it wants to be a full speed transitional map, but it just isn't. If you treat it as a full speed transitional map, then by the end of it you are carrying way too much speed to make some of the turns. So it's kind of techy and you have to brake a little. On this run, I just wanted to put down a time because I was a bit worried about DNFing, so that turn there I took pretty poorly and almost intentionally lost a decent bit of speed, just so that way I could make sure I put down a time. Later on in the event, I hit that last checkpoint at 0.7 green with 10 extra speed, and wasn't able to make that last turn because I had just too much speed to make it. Hindsight, I wish I had tapped brake instead of trying to take it full speed, but it's easier to say that afterward. So this next map is one of the maps that was played. I think it could have flowed a little better. So there's a lot of parts on this map where you can landing bug, and there's not really a lot that you can do to help it. Just kind of hoping that you don't is the best strategy. I try and make sure I land with my front wheels first, and that seems to definitely help mitigate it, but not necessarily eliminate it. I think having some less hard landings would have been great for this map. There's just so many where you're dropping onto a dead flat surface, and it's just so prone to landing bugging. This turn you definitely want to take wide and maintain as much speed as possible. That's probably the biggest difference in times that people are putting down. And then giving away a little bit of a secret here, I don't think this is very well known, but I go into the finish head first here, and that is intentional because going head first actually is very slightly faster than going with your tires. So this next map is another map that we played during the event. One thing that was changed prior to the event when the map was released is that first turn there had many cat spawns, and I was very glad to see that that was reduced to just one spawn. I really don't think cats have any place in competitive. It's just RNG. It's a good thing that it's at the beginning of the map, but sometimes you can just spawn in, take that turn, and then have to waste time, reset, and do it again, and it doesn't make sense for that to be determined by RNG. This spiral here, you're just kind of holding right and just hoping. I don't know if there's too much of a technique to it. The biggest thing on this map basically determines the entire time is how much speed you have coming out of that crane. If you can get 70 or more, then you're probably going to end up with a good time. If you have less than 70, then you're not going to have a good time. And that's pretty much how the map is determined, is just exit speed of that crane. So this next map is, again, a map that was played. They just keep on coming. The funnel at the start of it is a bit odd. This entry of the tube can be tough to get smooth, and then I prefer to brake leaving it and try and land in the funnel. I know a lot of people were looping. One thing I will say with this map is leaving that funnel. If you do the funnel too well, then you have too much speed to brake. So you kind of have to balance between doing the funnel well enough, but also not doing it too well. I think that's something that needs to be tested a little more before competition. I think punishing players for doing parts of maps particularly well isn't something that we should be doing in competition. And here we're on to the last map. Again, this is a map that I was a little concerned with DNFing. So on this run, I was just very heavily braking, taking it very slow, safe, cautious. I just want to put a time down. There is a bit of a cut you can do on this map to jump over a corner. Saves 1 to 2 seconds roughly. I didn't do it in this run, but I did add a clip after this, just showing it. This run, again, I was just trying to make sure I had a time down. I did not want to DNF. I don't know why anyone would DNF this map. It just doesn't make sense. You need to make sure you put a time down. With the time I had, for a while I was in second still, and when I was going for the cut, I ended up being on a 2-second green time, and really tried risking the end to try and catch Maki. I believe I ended up 3 or 4 seconds behind them, so this was the only time I put down because of how fast Maki's time was. I was just really trying to risk getting first, or this run, I believe I still ended up getting third with it. Really, this map, regardless if you're trying to do it fast or just put a time down, you need to be braking quite a lot on it, and just trying to brake as little as possible while making the turns is going to be the fastest way to do it. So right here quickly is the cut that I was talking about. You can actually jump in between these pillars, cut out that entire turn, and carry on. I think actually even with a little more speed as well. So that run I was showing is the run I was talking about, where I risked the end and ended up falling in the last turn. But that's the end of this CSL. There were only 11 maps. Again, I ended up placing third. Congrats to Maki, who won, and Jandje, who placed second. I hope you all enjoyed seeing how I played the races, hearing my thoughts on the maps, and let me know.